I was 3 steps behind her in line when I heard her voice crack. "Just cancel it, please. Just cancel the order." The woman at the counter of Dorance's bakery was gripping a torn receipt so tight her knuckles had gone white. Her name tag from the diner across the street was still pinned to her jacket, crooked, like she'd rushed out mid-shift. The girl behind the register, a teenager with flour on her apron, looked confused, glancing at the cake sitting in the glass case behind her. Chocolate, blue frosting, a little race car on top made of fondant. "Happy 7th birthday, Emmett," written in careful cursive. "Ma'am, it's already paid for. We can't." "I know it's paid for," the woman said, and her voice dropped so low almost didn't catch it. "I need the money back more than I need the cake. Please." Nobody else in that bakery was listening. A man behind me was checking his phone. A couple near the pastries was arguing quietly about croissants. But I was listening because 6 years earlier, I stood in a grocery store with the coupon that wouldn't scan and a toddler on my hip. And I remember exactly what it feels like to do math in your head while a stranger watches you fail at it. Her name, I learned later, was Bexley Thorne. Small town people don't forget names like that. I stepped out of line. I don't know why. I've asked myself that 100 times since. And the honest answer is I didn't decide anything. My body just moved before my brain caught up. The way it used to when Silas was small, and I'd hear him fall before I even saw it happen. "Excuse me," I said. "I'll cover it." Bexley turned around fast, like I'd startled her out of somewhere far away. Up close, she looked younger than her voice had sounded. Maybe 30, maybe less, with the kind of tired that doesn't come from one bad night, but from 100 of them stacked on top of each other. "I'm sorry. The cake. I'll pay for it. Keep your refund." Her face did something complicated. Gratitude and humiliation don't sit well together on the same expression, but that's what I saw. Both of them fighting for space. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I know I don't. You don't even know me." "I know a birthday cake when I see one," I said, "and I know what it costs to walk away from it." She stared at me for a long second, like she was deciding whether to be offended or to cry, and I genuinely didn't know which way it would go. Then she looked down at the receipt in her hand, still crumpled, and something in her shoulders gave up the fight. "His party's not happening," she said quietly. "There's no party. I needed to cancel something today." This was the only thing I could cancel. That sentence has stayed with me longer than almost anything anyone has ever said to me. I needed to cancel something today. This was the only thing I could cancel. I didn't understand it yet. I thought I did. I thought this was a story about money and to do a check that hadn't cleared, a landlord who didn't care about birthdays. I'd lived that story myself. I paid for the cake before she could argue, told the girl behind the counter to box it up anyway, and I gave Bexley my number on the back of my own crumpled receipt. The way you'd hand someone a life raft you weren't sure they'd take. "If you change your mind about the party," I said, "or if you just need someone to talk to. I raise a 7-year-old myself. I know how this age is." She didn't call that night. She didn't call the next day either. I told myself that was fine, that I'd done what I could, that some people don't want to be reached, and reaching for them again just makes it worse. My son Silas asked me at dinner why I seemed far away, and I told him I was thinking about a friend who was having a hard week. He asked if the friend needed a superhero. That's Silas, 7 years old, and already convinced every problem has a cape-wearing solution. 3 days later, she called. "I don't even know why I'm calling," she said. I don't have anyone else to call." I learned her story slowly, the way you learn the shape of a bruise, not all at once, but pressed on gently, over days. She wasn't behind on rent. She wasn't out of a job. Those would have been simpler problems, the kind you can fix with a number and a deadline. Her son, Emmett, the boy on the cake box, had been having headaches. Bad ones. The kind that made him squint at the television and press his palm against his temple, like he was trying to hold his skull together. She'd taken him to the pediatrician 2 weeks earlier, and the pediatrician hadn't liked what she saw, and there had been a referral, and then a scan, and then a phone call that Bexley described to me in a voice so flat, it scared me more than if she'd been crying. They found something, she said, on the scan. They don't know what it is yet. They said it's small. They said small is good. But they said, found something, and I haven't been able to hear anything else since. The birthday party, the one that was supposed to happen the following Saturday. The one with the race car cake and 11 kids from Emmett's class and a bounce house. Bexley had put on layaway 3 months ago, had turned overnight into something she couldn't survive planning. Every balloon felt like a lie. Every party favor felt like she was performing a life that might be about to change into something unrecognizable. She'd started canceling things one by one, quietly, without telling Emmett why. The bounce house first, then the goodie bags. The cake was the last thing on the list, and it was also, she told me, the thing she felt the guiltiest about, because Emmett had picked out that cake himself, standing at the bakery counter 2 weeks ago, pointing at the picture of the race car with a joy she now couldn't look at without wanting to fall apart. I can't give him a party, she said, and I can't tell him why, because what if I tell him, and then it's nothing, and I scared him for nothing? Or what if I don't tell him, and then she didn't finish that sentence. She didn't need to. I sat with the phone against my ear in my kitchen. Silas's homemade birthday drawing still taped to the fridge from 3 months earlier, and I thought about the particular cruelty of a world that hands a single mother a health scare and a birthday in the same week, like it was testing how much weight one person's shoulders could hold before something finally cracked. What's the follow-up scan say? Asked. When do you know more? 10 days, she said. They want to do more imaging before they decide anything. 10 days of not knowing. 10 days. I did the math without meaning to. Emmett's rescheduled scan would land 3 days after his actual birthday, which meant Bexley wasn't just canceling a party, she was trying to survive a birthday she was terrified might be shadowed by news she couldn't take back, trying to protect her son from a joy that might curdle into something painful if the wrong phone call came at the wrong moment. I didn't say anything wise. I don't think there was anything wise to say. I just told her I was glad she called, and I asked if I could bring dinner over that Friday. Nothing dramatic, just food. Because I remembered what it was like when Silas's mother left and casseroles showed up on my porch from neighbors who didn't know what else to do, and how those casseroles had meant more to me than any words anyone said. She let me come. That surprised me more than anything else that happened that week. Emmett was smaller than I expected, with a cowlick that refused to lie flat, and a stack of comic books he guarded like treasure. He didn't know about the scan. He didn't know his mother had canceled his cake and his bounce house and his 11 friends. He only knew that a stranger had shown up with a container of chicken and rice and a kid named Silas in tow, and that Silas had brought half his own comic book collection because, in Silas's words, sharing is what heroes do. The 2 boys disappeared into Emmett's room within 4 minutes. Bexley and I sat at her kitchen table, not really eating, and she told me things I don't think she'd said out loud to anyone. How she'd had Emmett at 22. How his father had left before Emmett turned 2. How she'd worked doubles at the diner for 5 years straight to keep the lights on. How the one thing she'd promised herself was that Emmett would always feel celebrated, always feel like his existence mattered to somebody. Because she remembered growing up in a house where birthdays came and went unmarked, like any other Tuesday. I can survive almost anything, she said, staring at her hands. I just can't survive being the reason his birthday feels like nothing. I want to tell you, I had some grand idea right then, some movie moment where the plan crystallized in my head, and I knew exactly what to do. That's not what happened. What happened is, I went home that night and I couldn't sleep. And I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad, writing down names, not because I had a plan, but because I needed to do something with my hands. The names were Emmett's classmates. Bexley had mentioned some of them in passing. A boy named Kellen, girl named Marisol, twins named Otis and June. I didn't have their parents' numbers. I had a small town, though, and a small town is its own kind of switchboard, if you're willing to make a few phone calls and swallow your pride. I called Emmett's teacher first, a woman named Priscilla Wexley, who taught half the kids in this county at some point. I told her the truth. Not all of it, not the part about the scan, because that wasn't mine to share, but enough. A boy in her class was having his birthday quietly canceled by a mother who was scared and out of options, and I wanted to know if there was any way to bring a little bit of that birthday back without making Emmett feel like charity, without making Bexley feel like she'd failed. Priscilla didn't hesitate. Within 2 days, she'd organized something so simple it almost embarrassed me that I hadn't thought of it myself. Instead of an after-school party, she asked if the class could do something during the school day, a surprise celebration. She called it low-key enough that Bexley wouldn't have to plan anything, low-cost enough that no parent would feel burdened, and framed in a way that Emmett would never suspect his mother had anything to hide. I went back to the bakery. The same teenage girl was behind the counter, and when I told her what I needed, she didn't even blink. She went and got the owner, a heavy-set man named Duncan Aldrich, who, it turned out, had grown up in this town poor enough to remember exactly what a canceled birthday cake meant to a kid. He didn't charge me for the second cake. He said the first one had already been claimed by someone doing a good thing, and he wanted to be part of it too. The morning of Emmett's actual birthday, I drove Silas to school an hour early, and I sat in the parking lot with my hands on the steering wheel, feeling more nervous than I had any right to feel over a 7-year-old's classroom party. I hadn't told Bexley what I was doing. I'd told her only that I wanted to bring lunch to Emmett's class as a surprise, just because, and she'd been too tired, too consumed by the coming scan, to ask more questions than that. She didn't know I'd called 11 parents. She didn't know Priscilla had spent 2 nights making paper race cars for a bulletin board. She didn't know Duncan had built a second cake, this one bigger than the first, with a race car so detailed, it looked like it could actually drive off. The frosting, what she knew, when she walked into that classroom at noon, because I'd asked her to sign a form as a pretext, something small and forgettable enough that she wouldn't suspect anything, was that 11 children were standing in a half circle, and her son was sitting at the front of the room, and the whole class was singing off-key and gloriously loud. And Emmett's face had gone the particular shade of red that only happens when a kid is trying not to cry in front of his friends. Bexley stood in the doorway of that classroom, and I watched something break open in her. Not the kind of breaking that destroys something, but the kind that lets something out that's been dammed up too long. Her hand went to her mouth. Her eyes filled before the first verse even ended. I hadn't planned to be standing beside her. I'd meant to hang back by the door, let this be a moment between a mother and her son, something private, even in a room full of 7-year-olds. But she reached over, without looking at me, and took hold of my sleeve, and held on the way you hold onto a railing when the ground feels unsteady. "You did this," she whispered. It wasn't a question. "Duncan did the cake," I said. "Priscilla did everything else. I just made some phone calls." "You didn't just make phone calls," she said, and her voice broke completely on the word phone. And I understood, watching her, that this wasn't only about the party. It was about being seen. It was about someone else deciding, without being asked, that her son's birthday mattered enough to fight for, that she wasn't alone in this. Not entirely, not anymore. Emmett blew out 7 candles on a cake his mother thought he'd never get. He didn't know, and to this day, mostly still doesn't know, how close that candle never came to being lit at all. The scan came back 9 days later. I was in Bexley's kitchen when the call arrived. Not because I'd planned to be there for that specific moment, but because in the 2 weeks since, the bakery started showing up for smaller things too. The way you do when you realize someone doesn't have anyone else showing up. She'd asked me to stay while she waited for the call back, because she said she didn't think she could hold the phone steady on her own. I watched her face while she listened. I've replayed that 15 seconds in my head more times than I can count. The way her whole body seemed to be holding its breath. The way her free hand gripped the edge of the counter, like she needed something solid under her palm. Benign, small, nothing that required anything beyond a follow-up in 6 months to be sure it wasn't growing. She didn't say a word for almost a full minute after she hung up. Then she sat down on the kitchen floor right there, back against the cabinet, and she put her face in her hands, and she cried in a way I don't think she'd let herself cry through the entire ordeal. Not the quiet, controlled tears of someone trying to hold a household together, but the loud, shaking, relieved sobs of someone who'd been carrying something enormous and had finally been allowed to put it down. Emmett found us like that when he came home from Silas's house, where the two boys had been building something elaborate out of cardboard and comic books. He froze in the doorway, scared, the way kids get scared when they see an adult cry. Bexley looked up at her son, wiped her face with the back of her hand, and did something I still think about. She opened her arms, and she said, "Come here, baby. Everything's okay. Everything is more than okay." He ran to her. She held him the way you hold something you almost lost and got to keep. I stood in that kitchen doorway and felt like I was intruding on something too sacred for me to witness, and I started to step back to give them privacy. But Emmett looked up over his mother's shoulder, still small, still confused by grown-up tears he didn't fully understand, and he said the thing that broke me open, the way that classroom had broken Bexley open weeks before. "Is Weston staying for dinner?" "That's my name, Weston Hollis. I hadn't told you that yet, because for most of this story I wasn't a name to Bexley. It was a stranger in a bakery line who couldn't walk past someone else's pain without doing something about it. But somewhere in those weeks, I'd stopped being a stranger. I'd become a person a 7-year-old boy expected to find at the dinner table. I stayed for dinner that night. I've stayed for a lot of dinners since. It's been 8 months now. Emmett's scan in the spring came back clear. Silas and Emmett are inseparable. Two boys who found each other because they're fathers, and the space where a father should have been led them to the same kitchen table. Bexley still works at the diner, though fewer doubles now, because I help where I can. Not out of obligation, but because that's what you do for people who become your people. I think about that day in the bakery often, the torn receipt, the crumpled paper, the sentence that's never left me. This was the only thing I could cancel. I think about how close I came to staying in that line, minding my own business, telling myself it wasn't my place to get involved in a stranger's grief. I think about how the smallest thing, a cake, a phone call, a sleeve someone grips because the ground feels unsteady, can end up being the thread that holds someone's entire world together while they wait to find out if it's going to fall apart. Emmett's 8th birthday is in 3 months. This time, there's a bounce house already booked. This time, there's no receipt being torn in a bakery line. No phone call to dread, no version of this family standing at the edge of losing something they hadn't even had time to be afraid of losing. This time, when Bexley asked me to help plan the party, she didn't ask because she was drowning. She asked because I'm someone she wants beside her when the good things happen too, not just the hard ones. That's the part nobody tells you about showing up for a stranger. You don't just get to witness the worst day of someone's life and walk away afterward, unchanged, uninvolved. Sometimes, you get invited to stay for all the days that come after. Sometimes a cake you paid for in a moment of instinct becomes the first candle in a whole new life you didn't know you were about to be part of. I didn't save Emmett. The doctors did that, and the universe was kind enough to let a small thing stay small. But I like to think I did something almost as important. I made sure that no matter what that scan said, one little boy got to blow out his candles surrounded by people who loved him, without ever knowing how close he'd come to not having any candles at all. Some birthdays are just birthdays, and some birthdays are the moment you find out exactly who's willing to stand beside you when the ground gives way. I got lucky. I got to be that person for a family that is now, in every way that matters, my own.
Sometimes the smallest act of kindness becomes someone else's biggest turning point. If this story moved you, let us know in the comments. and don't forget to subscribe because more heartfelt stories are on the way.